What's the point of having faith if you can't rely on it when you need it most? Have you ever felt like things were down, like you didn't know what was coming next, like there was no way on earth you would survive or see just another day, but somehow, some way, here you are? What's the point of having faith if in your darkest moments, if when you need it the most, you don't even look to it? The truth is, so many people talk about faith when they're up, but what about when you're down? When your faith is being tested, that's when you know what the value of it truly is. And so if you only believe when you're up, if your faith is only strong when you're winning, how do you know it's real faith? On the other hand, you should know for a fact your faith will be tested. And when it is, what do you do? When it is, how do you react? When that faith is tested, do you give up and throw in the towel? Or do you recognize and realize that a force far greater than you, far more powerful than you, is working on your behalf? When your faith is unshakable, when your mind is unbreakable, and when there's no chance on earth, you're gonna let outside forces dictate the way you think, you become dangerous. You become hard to stop, and you get that much closer to be able to turn your dreams into a reality, to be able to take the nightmare and turn it into a memory. Sometimes you gotta go through stuff, and maybe the reason you go through the things you go through is to be able to tell somebody else, hey, I went through it. Hey, I've been there. But you can't do it if you never go through it. And even more than that, while you're going through it, the way you go through it matters. Everyone is gonna go through trials and tribulations. Everyone is gonna be tested. Everyone is gonna face stumbling blocks along their journey. The question is, how do you deal with them? What is your mentality? What is the narrator inside of your head telling you? Because if when things are good, you believe, and when things are down, you stop, it's not really faith. It's conditional. And so today we want to talk about the idea of faith. Faith isn't conditional. Faith isn't something that when you're up, you believe, and when you're down, it goes away. No. If anything, when you're tested, that's when you know the true value of your strength. If anything, when you're tested, that's when you know what your faith really is. That's when you know what's really going on inside of your head and your heart. Your faith is going to be tested. The question is, how will you respond? But even more than that, how will you choose to respond? Life can be hard. It could be unfair. You'll lose people who you never thought you would lose again. You'll have opportunities taken from you that you'll never see again. And it doesn't matter as long as you keep the faith. Yes, you're going to experience ills. Yes, you're going to experience setbacks. But also, you're going to experience a lot of ups too. The truth is, there's no better time to rely on your faith than when you need it most. It's like having insurance for a car. What's the point of having insurance for the car if when you get into an accident, you don't do anything with it? If on paper it says that you have full coverage, but in reality, you never take advantage of it, what are you really doing? And if you think I'm talking about insurance, you're missing the whole point of this. No, the real insurance, the best insurance, the number one life insurance isn't life insurance, it's faith. It's believing in something much bigger than you, much more powerful than you, even beyond what your own normal capabilities are, because oftentimes that's what it takes. When you're going up against the impossible, when you're trying to do something that's never been done before, you're gonna need a force behind you that is powerful, unshakable, unwavering, and that you can rely on. And that's what faith is. That's the thing that's gonna set you apart from everybody else. When most people are going through things, their mind isn't focused, their mind isn't sharp. The human default is to fear, is to worry, and is to go to that dark negative place. It's human. But what if you could go beyond? What if you could recognize and realize that if most people are responding this way and not getting the results they want, maybe I need to do something different. Maybe I need to be a little bit better. Maybe your faith is being tested. Maybe God or the universe or whoever it is that you believe in, whatever it is that you put in your faith and believe in, maybe it's all testing you. Maybe he really wants to see how much do you really believe. Because anybody can be down when things are up. Anybody can believe and have courage and have faith when it's easy. What happens when your money is low? What happens when you're tired and fatigued? What happens when you're emotional? What happens when you've been hurt? What happens when you don't feel like pushing through any longer? When the days seem darkest and the nights seem longest? And that's when you need to step up and believe in it the most. That's why it's there. And if you are able to root yourself in that faith, then in the moments where you're up, you'll appreciate it that much more because you understood the struggle of what it took to come back from being down. Many people get down and they never come back up. And it wears on you and it makes you feel like, what's the point of even having faith? But if while you went through those trials and tribulations, your mind was always unfocused, you never told yourself the right thing, you constantly fed into the lies that life will often tell you, what else are you going to end up with? Where else will life leave you in its conclusion? Ultimately, you won't be where you want to be because you didn't do the things it takes. Thought precedes action. How are you going to achieve these amazing results when your brain is thinking so simple, when your mind is thinking so limited? There's no way you're going to be able to achieve it. And even if you do, the amount of struggle and grind it'll take is going to be far too much. There is a cost to pay to live in a life of doubt. There is a cost to pay to live in a life without faith. On the other hand, there is a beautiful growth, an evolution, something that makes you better, something that changes you when you start to live, operate, and move within faith. And if you don't believe me, consider this. How many people do you know talk about a higher power when things are up, but then when things get down, they seem to be completely lost? And don't get me wrong, I'm not expecting people to not be human. I'm not expecting you to not feel. What I'm saying is, in those moments where you're feeling it the most, if you've been fueling every other step of your way, every other step of your journey with faith, and it's been working, why would you stop now? Why would you stop when things seem the bleakest? That's when you need it the most. The same God that you prayed to, that blessed you when you were down, is also going to be the same one that tests you when you're up. The same God that you prayed to and believed in when you were on your come up is also the same God that may test you while you're at the top. How can you maintain if you don't have the faith in order to fuel you? How can you maintain if you haven't actually been through the thing? It's been said that a lot of times when we go through trials and tribulations, it's not for ourselves, but for others. Maybe you're going through whatever it is you're going through, not for your own benefit, but so that 10, 15, 20 years down the line, you can tell somebody else. Maybe the reason you've been through it all is so that you can be a witness to somebody else who's going through that very same thing in this moment. Maybe the whole purpose for your struggle, for your trials, for your missteps was so that you could be a beacon of light and hope to others. In today's day and age, it's easy to become a me monster, to make the world revolve around you, and to think that life in the universe is conspiring against you. But what if it isn't? What if everything that's being placed on your back, what if everything that seems to be testing you is actually building you, is actually helping you grow? What are you going to do with it though? And here's the deal. If you were told ahead of time, you'll be tested in this way, it wouldn't really be a test. No, the best tests are often the pop quizzes, the ones you didn't expect. Because when you're able to pass the test and you weren't even expecting it, that's when you know you're prepared. That's when you know you're ready. And that's when you know that that faith that you've been living with, unmovable, unshakable, is ready to drive you to something even greater. And maybe, just maybe, your greater is spreading and sharing that light with someone else so that they can light their flame and do the same for others. What if we could start a revolution? What if we could do something special, built and rooted in faith? You will be tested in this life, and nobody gets to answer for you. Nobody gets to have faith for you. No one gets to stand in your place and say, hey, he believed. Oh, no. She believed. She was about that life. Just in the moment, she had a little bit of doubt. Either you believe or you don't. Now, what if you flip the dynamic and do a little thought experiment? What if for just a brief moment, you became the most powerful being in the world? You had all of the power in the universe within your palms. And in that moment, you decided to tap some regular person on the shoulder and let them know that they've been favored. If that person who you tapped on the shoulder were to look up at you and say, nah, I don't believe. Even though you got me through this far, I'm going to doubt you a little bit more. Even though I can literally feel the power coursing through my veins, I still don't believe it. Imagine all of this took place. How would you respond? Well, the first thing you may do is to test them even more. And so it's been said that God will test you with the same thing over and over and over again until you finally learn how to pass it. What if your faith is being tested to see when will you finally show up? When will you finally believe, and when will you finally use the strength that you've been given? It will be like going into a boxing match against the highest level competitor, but tying your arm behind your back. You may be able to do good, you might be able to survive for a minute, but eventually if that other person is who you think they are, they're coming, and they're going to be able to do what they need to do. And then we also got to look at the reverse side of things, the inverse. Forget about you being the most powerful being in the universe. Forget about God himself tapping you on the shoulder and showing you that love. What about the other side of it? What about evil? Because for sure, whether you like it or not, whether you believe it or not, the worst people in the world, they're moving in faith. Faith isn't necessarily a good thing or a positive thing. It's a thing. The worst among us are absolutely using faith to drive their dreams, so you got to do the same thing. Negative people never lose faith that they might be able to reach somebody, that they might be able to influence somebody, that they might be able to change somebody's minds or thoughts or belief or whatever. What are you going to do to counter it? What are you going to do to reverse it? What will you do to make sure that the world knows that the very light that's within you will never be silenced by anyone else? That the very light that's within you will never be dimmed by haters, by negativity, and by doubt. No, faith is what we're going to be fueled with. No, faith is going to be what drives us to the next level and keeps us moving beyond. Because even when things are darkest, that's when our faith is strongest. Sometimes the world might see you at a high. Sometimes it might feel like you're at your lowest. But it's that faith that's going to keep you grounded. It's that faith that's going to let you say, even though I just lost somebody who I love dearly, who meant the world to me, I still gotta believe that even in this moment when I'm hurting and it's hard and I don't feel like I can push through, if I could just go for 1 second more, that might just be enough. If I could go 5 minutes more, that might be enough. If I could go 1 day more, that might be enough. Faith isn't always millions and millions and tons of massive belief. Sometimes you just need the faith of a mustard seed. Tiny, ability to weather and endure storms, but it's not the biggest thing on earth. It's not the most powerful or intimidating thing on earth, but it's there. And it's firm and it's unwavering and it won't quit. And if that's the way you think, who can stop you? If that's the way you're moving, what's gonna get in the way of what you want to achieve? I'm gonna say nothing. We gotta get rolling. Let's do it. Faith is also a force multiplier. Whatever it is you do, it may be 5x, 10x, 100x if you're fueling that dream with faith. And if you're not, it's not that whatever you're doing won't be multiplied. You'll just be average. If you're trying to fly all the way to the moon, you're going to need some rocket fuel that's different. You're going to need to propel and fly at speeds that are not normal, that are above human. That's where the faith comes in. Now, if you want to be regular, if you want to think at the most basic level, you do basic things and you have basic results and basic action. You live a basic life. Nothing wrong with that if that's what you want for yourself. And if you know for a fact that these dreams weren't put in you for no good reason, you got to do something with them. Because again, if you didn't believe that your dreams, goals, or whatever the big thing is that you want to achieve, if you didn't believe that that thing could become a reality, why would you ever put forth the effort it takes in order to achieve it? Why would you give your all? Why would you go 1,000% in? Why would you show up day after day? Why would you wake up early? Why would you show the discipline, not cut the corners, and do what it takes to achieve what you need? Why would you do all of that if you didn't believe it was possible? And let's be real, the possibility of all of that coming true might be slim. It might be 1%, but somebody's gonna get that 1%. Somebody's gonna make that slim chance become a reality. Why not you? Why not us? Why can't we make it become a thing? This is the infinite evolution. It's recognizing in your mind first that the faith is going to start with me. And once I got that faith fueling me and pushing me towards better, no one can stop me. No one will stop me. And even if they try, I'm going to keep going. That's what faith is. On the other hand, when you don't have faith and that dream that almost feels impossible keeps getting further and further away, why would you keep going? Why wouldn't you just give up and quit if you didn't have a reason to believe? That's what we're talking about. And let's be real. I know that most people are okay when things are up. But what about when the chips are down? The truth is, in order to be able to take the next step, you got to be willing to take the first step. Why would you take the first step and the next and the third and the fourth and the 1,000th if you don't believe in anything? It won't happen. And for sure by now, you probably have noticed that many people in the world, despite what they tell you, despite what they project, lost, confused, angry, scared, unsure, they don't have things figured out. So if you do what they do, there's a good chance you'll be on the same path as they are. And it's not an accident that so many people are negative or don't seem to have peace or are always bickering, going at somebody, attacking, pulling people down. It's because they don't have faith in anything higher, let alone themselves, let alone goodness, let alone positivity. They may have it in something negative. They may believe in negativity and engagement and the algorithm, but there's no way on earth they're believing in something greater, because if they did, they wouldn't move that way. And so you got to be different if you want different. If you want to approach the throne, you got to think like you're approaching the throne. If you know eventually you want to approach the throne, you can't be thinking like a pauper who's on the road to nowhere. You got to change the way you think. Because how can you recognize it if you don't even know what it is? Let's be clear. Faith is belief in something greater than you, something more powerful than you, a force that is supporting you and behind you that you may not be able to see, that others may not be able to recognize, but for sure is there. Even if it doesn't feel tangible, even if it's not something that is readily observable, you know for a fact it's there. And as a result, you can believe in it. You can put your energy towards it. You can base your actions around it. That's what faith is. Now let me be clear. Faith isn't magic. A lot of times when we can't see things, hear them, when others don't know that they're there or validate us with that confirmation, a lot of times we tend to doubt. Faith isn't going to be something you see. It's not going to be something you can touch or taste or smell. Oftentimes, faith only lives and relies in your mind. And so you have to find the source. Is your source going to be the most high, the most powerful, God Almighty himself, or will it be something else? Will it be belief in you? Will it be belief in systems and things? Now for myself, I've always felt like there was something greater, something more powerful that's been walking with me every single step of the way. Even when things seemed down, even when things seemed darkest, it always felt like there was somebody, something walking beside me, watching out for my steps, making sure that I kept going. Even when things seemed darkest, it didn't feel quite right to doubt. Even when things seemed bleakest, it still felt like I was going to come out of it one way or another. And even in the darkest moments where I didn't, there was always some sign, some spark, some thread, some little mustard seed that let me know to keep going. And so with that being said, you need to find the source. For me, my source was God, the most powerful, the highest, the almighty. Our relationship is personal. Our connection is spiritual. And I don't fully need to understand everything that's going on behind the scenes to know that he's working for me, because he has. There's been so many situations in life where I have no idea how I made it through. It must have been a higher force. It must have been a higher power. And even in the moments where I was at my lowest, where my faith was being tested, my faith was at its weakest, those are the moments where it mattered most. Those are the moments where just having a little bit, having a faint whisper of it would take you the farthest. A lot of times when I'm up, when we're up, we tend to get comfortable. We tend to take for granted the things we have. Well, these days when I get something, I'm making sure that I show gratitude. I'm making sure that I'm thankful. I'm making sure that I'm praying. And I'm not just talking about it, but I'm living the actions of faith. That I'm not just saying what I believe, but I'm living it. That I'm not just telling people how to be, but I'm showing it and proving it through action. It's not about me forcing a particular book down people's throat. It's about me showing them through action, through the way that I live. And this is what faith looks like. This is where you could be if you believe. And I'm not even the best of us. I'm not even the highest among us. There are those whose faith is immense. Well, what if you could take a page out of their playbook? How far could you go? What limits would you have? That's what we're talking about. This is the infinite evolution. Finding that faith and using it as rocket fuel to take you to infinity and beyond. Beyond the moon, beyond the stars, beyond whatever you thought was possible. Because the power of faith is just that great. Faith without doing works is a recipe for disaster. But when you put action behind the very faith that you believe in, you are unstoppable. So you got to get rolling. Not later, now. Because what if you're on the verge of a breakthrough? What if you're right there? What if on the other side of you putting forth just one more step, what if greatness is right there? What if your shining moment is right there? What if you're ready to start something beautiful and big? And what if all you got to do is go a little bit further? That's what faith is. In my last video, I talked about how a lot of times when you're really close to doing something special, when you're right there on the cusp of greatness, it may not feel like it. You may not know it. In the fourth quarter of a close, tight, intense game, nobody knows who's going to win, but the person who kept their mind sharp and focused and is able to perform, they get the job done. You didn't know one way or another if you would win, but your faith is strong, and your faith is what allowed you to push forward on those hard days. When it was late and you were tired, you kept going, so when you make it to that fourth quarter, you can execute. Your faith is what drove you to take the actions in order to get you here. How dare you quit and give up now that you're on the cusp of doing what it is you were ready to do, doing what it is that you trained for and prepared for and built for. This is the power of faith, and this is the infinite evolution. Before I started this channel, I was so nervous, so worried about being judged and being less than perfect and not being as great as what my tastes were, even though my skills and experience were not quite up to par. I thought too much. I didn't believe enough, and I wasn't thinking, moving, and responding as though I literally have the power of the entire universe behind me. Because if I did, I would have started this channel years ago. But maybe the reason why I didn't start it then, maybe the reason I started it exactly when I did, was because that's when my faith was ready. And because it took that long in order for me to develop it and push myself through, now that's going to be a testimony that I have to give to somebody else. Because for sure there's somebody else in life who has a dream or a goal or something that they want to get done, but they're doubting themselves. They're wondering if they could do it, even though it's been put on their heart. Why would God put it on your heart? Why would he put it in your mind if you weren't supposed to do it? Why would the universe give you all of this passion, give you all of this fuel, if you were supposed to just sit there and remain idle? Doesn't make sense. So I decided to do it scared. One day I charged up my battery, put a memory card in the camera, and decided to simply speak. I wrote down some thoughts. I had some ideas in the blueprint of what it is I wanted to say. But the most important thing was that I do it, that I execute, that I move with a sense of urgency, because I knew for a fact that I wasn't here by accident. This wasn't put on your heart for no good reason. You were meant to be here. You're supposed to be here. It was supposed to take this long, and you having faith and believing that is what's going to drive you to be better. It's what's going to drive you to be able to push through 1 episode and 5 episodes and 10 episodes and 25 and maybe 30 and 100 and thousands. But you can't get to 1,000 before you get to 1. And you won't be willing to do the first one if you don't believe that is where you're supposed to be. And so if you don't have faith in the fact that you've been given this voice, you've been given these thoughts, you've been given these ideas, this passion, these dreams, you haven't been given it all for no reason, do something with it. Execute. Take the action, make a plan, and execute. Because you know for a fact that if you look back 10, 15, 20 years from now and you haven't done it, that's a hard life. That's a lot of regret, and we won't be able to stand it. So do something now or forever hold your peace. But when you're thinking like that, when you're telling yourself that faith is driving you, it almost makes it impossible to not take the action. It makes it so much harder to remain stagnant and do nothing, because you know you literally been given the best of the best. All you got to do is make something of it. So I had to be honest with myself. Do you really have faith if you only believe when things are easy, or if it seems likely, or if the odds are in your favor? If you want to do something special, you got to be willing to go against the odds. You got to be willing to push back against the negativity, to resist the temptation, and to put everything, all of your energy, all of your action into that thing that you got faith in. Because it's there for a reason. You wouldn't be here after all of this time for no reason. You wouldn't be listening to this very message if you weren't supposed to do something with it. I am just one person. But imagine if we had hundreds of thousands of people who could go from 0 to infinity in terms of sharing and loving and caring and living a life rooted in faith. What could we do? What could we accomplish? What could we achieve? This is the infinite evolution. Why believe it all if when you're finally tested, you don't do anything with it? Why have the faith if when you've been given an opportunity, you fold and crumble? Why believe it all if in those moments when you're tested, you don't do anything with it? And let me be clear, one way or another, you're showing faith. One way or another, you actually are gonna execute. But what is it that you believe? You see, whether your faith is rooted in a higher power, the universe, yourself, your work, your deeds, or whatever, that's faith. But it's also faith to believe in the negativity. And so when you put time, energy, effort, resources into things like doubt, negativity, questioning yourself, wondering if this purpose is real, wondering why you were the one who were chosen, what do you think is going to happen? Now compare that version of you to the one whose mind is unshakable, to the one who knows I've been put here for a reason. It was placed on my heart for a reason, and I won't stop until I get it done. Who sounds more unstoppable? Who sounds like they're gonna quit really soon? And who sounds like there's nothing that can be done to deny them? I want you to be the latter. I want you to be a person of faith because you have it in you. I want you to be a person who believes and take action, not just because you think it or it kind of might be a thing, but because you got that faith of a mustard seed. Because even when things seem bleakest and darkest and like they're not in your favor, you know all it takes is a little spark, and you can take that and spin straw into gold. Because if the most powerful and if the most high can literally take water and turn it into wine, what could he do with your life? What could he make happen with you if you would only believe? I'm not here to tell you you have to do anything. You don't. But either way, you're putting your faith in something or somewhere. What will it be? Is it doubt and negativity? Or is it belief in the greater? Is it knowing for a fact that that fuel that's pushing you is ready to roll? And all you got to do is turn the engine on, and everything else will work out. Your faith is powerful beyond measure, but only if you allow it to be. If you never take the actions, if you constantly make excuses, if you're always coming up with reasons why you should be doubting, you shouldn't believe, you shouldn't go towards the impossible, why would you ever make it happen? When we're talking about this belief in this greater power, oftentimes when we refer to faith, we're only talking about a few, the faithful few. And so why can't you be one of the ones who uses that faith to change the world and make it to a better place? You gotta choose to find the source. You gotta choose to embrace that source, and then more than anything else, you can't just say it, you can't just think it, you gotta actually do it. Because it's not enough to simply say that you believe something, your actions gotta follow suit. But why can't it be you? If you're thinking with faith, if your mindset is one of belief, what limits do you truly have? On the other hand, if you're thinking with doubt, the limit has already been set. And it was set by you. Don't let it win. If you know for a fact that something greater, something bigger has been placed on your heart, you have to know that it was placed there for a reason. And it is that faith, that driving force that will move you to get the job done, even when things feel impossible, even when it seems like everything is stacked against you. You'll be able to endure, you'll be able to push through, and you'll be able to succeed. Why? Because you kept the faith. And so what would happen if you allow your faith to serve as a catalyst for your dreams, purpose, peace, goals, destiny, future, all of it? This is the infinite evolution.